Okay guys, in this tutorial I'm going to be going over rendering in Mental Ray with you. Now if you don't know a lot about rendering or a lot about Mental Ray, you can always check out my other videos, like a PowerPoint video which I talk through, explaining what rendering is. But anyway, I'm just going to dive straight into it, so let's close this lights menu. And we've already created our camera, we've done our lights, and we don't want to render in the perspective view, we want to render through the camera view. So if we open up our render view by clicking that icon up here, the one with the eye, you can see I've already done a little test render, but what you need to make sure is come to this menu by here where it says render, and then come down to this one. So you want to make sure that you choose camera 1, and obviously my current renderable view is the camera 1, so that's all good, that's all set up. Just make sure that you click that one, that so you're rendering through the camera. The other thing you want to make sure is this render is not very high quality. You can see if you zoom in, you can see all this kind of grain, this digital noise. Now you want to make sure that you switch to Mental Ray, but if I look at my drop down, I haven't got Mental Ray there. So what you need to do if that happens, because it will happen to you, you need to minimize that, come to Windows, Settings and Preferences, and then come down to Plugin Manager. Once you've opened that, you'll have what looks like a confusing view, but don't worry, just scroll down and it'll normally be at the bottom, and it's called Maya TOMR, and all that means is Maya to Mental Ray. So just make sure you click loaded, and then after you've done that, click auto load as well. Just wait for it to load. Yeah, so click auto load as well, and then you can click close. Now if we go back into our render view, which is this eye icon, just to open it up, let's make it full screen, click the drop down, and this time we've got Mental Ray, so we can render it with Mental Ray this time. But I want to keep every image that I render so I can kind of go back and compare differences. So this little sort of icon up here, that's what that'll do. So let's just click that and we'll keep our previous image. So now that we've done that and kept our previous image, we've got this scroll bar along the bottom. This will show you the, when we drag it over here, it'll show you the previous image. And even though we drag it over here, it shows you the same one. It's because we haven't re-rendered it yet. So to do that, just click this clapperboard. And let's see what it gives us with Mental Ray, so we can compare the differences instantly between Mental Ray and Maya Software's renderer. So just let that load in. And already, if I drag between them, you can see this one render time 13 seconds, and when you come back, it's only 5 seconds. And that's because look how many more shadows are being casted in the Mental Ray. Now, if we zoom in, and you don't really need to zoom in to see this, but if we look by here, you can see the shadows. They're not very high quality. You can see all this sort of digital noise again. So, and you can see it here as well. So I'm going to show you how we kind of use our render settings to kind of get over that. So first of all, you need to come back into each one of the lights, select the light, go into shadows, and make sure you scroll down and turn on use ray trace shadows, which is turned on, which is great. Now, if you up the shadow rays, that's basically how many times the sort of shadow is traced through the scene. It's another kind of, it's like a shadow quality setting. I'll go into this in a lot more detail in class, but just make sure you kind of bump this up a little bit for each light. So I'll come into this directional light. I've selected the background, so let's go to my outliner, and in here you can see we've got all our lights. So let's go to this directional light 2. Make sure ray trace shadows is on, and let's up the shadow rays as well, and let's do the same for this area light. So come into shadows, make sure use ray trace shadows is on, and just up the shadow rays. So let's also, before we give it another render, go into our render settings, and that's this clapperboard with the cog next to it. So let's click that and we'll get this window. Now the I'll go through the common tab in another tutorial when I talk about batch rendering, which is exporting images out of Maya. But let's have a look first of all at the quality tab. Now, if you go, make sure you click Show Advanced Options, and then you've got this Legacy Options by here. So you can come down, and again, you've got another place where you can turn on shadows, turn up the shadow quality. So let's go and see inside our render view the difference. Remember to save the previous image. So now we'll have, 1, 2, and we will have a third when we render it. So let's give that another render. Now this one may take slightly longer. I think the last one was 15 seconds, but we can already see a vast improvement in the shadows. So let's wait till that renders in, and then let's have a little closer inspection. Okay, so if we go between this one, these two, you can see, let's zoom in, you can see there's been an increase in the shadows if we go between the two. However, I still think it could do with a bit of work. So let's see, let's go to this one, up the shadow rays again, come to this one, turn them up, and yep, turn these up. Now let's give it another render. So save this one and give it another render and see if we've got any improvement in the quality of the shadows. And from what I'm seeing so far, it looks like we are. And after we've had a look at this, I'm going to show you some other settings that you can also use. So let's let that render in. And yes, so that one took 23 seconds, whereas the last one took a little less. So this is where we started. Let's zoom in. This is our first render with Mental Ray. This was our next one, and this is the one we did just now. I still think there could be a slight increase. So again, just go in further, turn up those shadow rays. You got a little bit of noise in there, but nowhere near as much as we had last time or the time before. So yeah, I'll quickly go in, just turn them up maybe a bit more. But if we come back into our render settings, if you come down in the quality tab, make sure Show Advanced Settings on, click into the Legacy options, and you've got something here called Global Illumination and Final Gather. Now, Global Illumination and Final Gather are just some, I'm going to go through this again another time, but if you have a white shiny computer next to a pink shiny computer, you would expect, if they're very close, you would expect the white shiny computer to have a bit of pink colour shining on it, and that's where the photon bounces between the two, and light spills everywhere. Again, if you have a room which has got a white floor but very green walls, you would expect the floor to be sort of tinted green, and it's where the photons are bouncing off the walls and onto the floor and sort of spilling that colour over. And that's kind of what these settings are for. So Global Illumination is mainly for indoor scenes, and Final Gathering is used for outdoor scenes. So let's just turn Global Illumination on, come back to our render view, save the last image, and give it another render. Now, it was 23 seconds last time, and I reckon it may well go up a little bit, but hopefully, the quality might as well. So we'll just let that one render in. Okay, so looks like 23 seconds it's stayed with again, but let's see if there's an increase in quality. I can see a very, very, very small increase in quality, and it didn't really increase in time, so it doesn't really matter too much. Let's see what happens if we turn Final Gathering on. So let's do save last image and do another render. And this one is the killer. This will always, Final Gathering will always kind of turn up your render time. It'll always take a lot longer to render, so I'll probably pause the video and then join you when it's rendered. Okay, so we can see that this image took 1 minute and 10 seconds, whereas our previous one took 23 seconds. and just by going between the two you can see where in the other renders this is slightly underlit on the bottom by here, but when it lets the light bounce around a lot more and it traces it, then you can see that actually, you know, the lighting is actually improved quite a bit, and I prefer this view, and I think for the extra you know, extra little bit of time, it actually pays off quite nice. You've got some soft shadows, and yeah, it's looking pretty nice. So that is, you know, using some basic render settings inside of Maya to modify, you know, your final view. I'm going to do 2 more tutorials on rendering. One is going to be on image-based lighting, and the other is going to be on batch rendering. So yeah, cool. Thanks for tuning in.